Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Before we do anything, it is told to us that we should say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the merciful and compassionate. So you ask a blessing on what you're doing by calling forth God's names. Bismillah, in the name of Allah, Rahman ar-Rahim, the merciful and the compassionate. Words are one thing. Action is another thing. Once these words are spoken, they should trigger within you the qualities that are Allah. When you say in the name of God, the merciful and the compassionate, you are also saying, or at least you should be saying, you should be intending, O God, the merciful and compassionate, allow mercy and compassion to rule over me. Let that mercy and that compassion that is all pervasive throughout the universe also be all pervasive throughout my being. Be all pervasive throughout who I am. Let me become merciful and compassionate. Let me understand the unity of truth, the unity of justice, the unity of all creation. If we intend that unity, then as we intend God's qualities, we enter into a state that is other than our illusory torpor. And the constant fight that we as humanity are in is this fight, this struggle between the torpor of illusion and the truth of the unity of reality, the truth of the unity of God's qualities, the truth of the unity that exists within us that is outside this world of illusion. They have a word to describe a certain kind of person in psychology. The word is narcissist. A narcissist is someone who is entirely focused on the self, who is entirely focused on their needs, their wants, their desires, and who believes in the grandeur of the self, that they know more than anybody else, that they are more important than anybody else, and that their opinion is more important than any other opinion. A narcissist is at the highest level of differentiating the self from everyone around them. He is at the highest level of entering into the world of differences, entering into the world of I, me, mine, not yours. I, me, mine, not others. I, me, mine, and only I. This inability to see beyond the self, this inability to have empathy for those around us is what causes and creates the difficulties in the world. If we have attachment to something, now in the case of a narcissist, it's attachment to the self, but there are so many other attachments that man is capable of. But if we have attachment to religion, we're incapable of being just. If we have attachment to nationality, we're incapable of being just. If we have attachment to our family and our blood ties, we're incapable of being just. So what happens is, and I've seen this, people consider their group human and everybody else somehow less than human. There have been tribes in America in the time of the Native Americans where the tribe would call themselves the human beings with the supposition that everybody else was less than human beings. They were something other. Well, this goes on in so many parts of the world. This goes on where nationality becomes more important than human life, where expansion of the nation becomes more important than human life. And war is a permissible way to expand nationality. And whatever the consequences, they don't matter, because the most important thing is the nationality. Religion does the same thing. At the time of religious wars, the most important thing was the religion. It stood out in the forefront of things, and people considered it so important that they were willing to kill on behalf of it. The word holy war came into being, that you would be given certain special considerations in the afterlife because of losing your life in a holy war. As a matter of fact, at the time of the Iranian-Iraqi war, during the time of Khomeini, plastic keys were given to the Iranian soldiers who were told that if they died in the war, this key would be their entry into heaven. This kind of thinking where something becomes more important than everything else has entered into the human sphere, has entered into mankind's way of going about things. And what happens is it leads to unspeakable evil, because when it comes to these things that man holds as ultra special, ultra important, to protect that, you can go to whatever means are necessary. And when this happens, empathy is lost. The ability to feel the pain of others is lost. The ability to feel the suffering of others is lost. And all of a sudden, that suffering has no meaning. It doesn't matter, because our enemy isn't human. Our adversary isn't human. Sufism teaches that all of humanity is one family. All of humanity came from one mother and father. All of humanity was created by the one God. And there is no separation amongst men. So what happened? We have created all of these artificial separations, all of these separations that have no reality, but the mind holds on to them as if they were real, as if they were important, and as if they needed to be defended. When in truth, not only don't they need to be defended, they need to be done away with. When the prophets came, they came to spread a word of peace among men. They came to spread a word of love among men, of kindness among men. But what happened soon after prophets' deaths were that the ones who knew the prophet separated themselves off as kindred to that prophet, as associated with that prophet, and the rest of the world who wasn't associated with that prophet became the other. At the time of Abraham, human sacrifice was prevalent. So Allah told Abraham, sacrifice your son. And Abraham took his son and told him that he had been told by God to sacrifice him. And his son agreed, if God told him, to go along with this. And they laid the son out, ready to sacrifice him. But then God came and said, don't sacrifice him. Sacrifice a ram instead. But understand that the blood tie between you and your son can lead to divisions in the future, can lead to animosities in the future, can lead to certain people claiming that they are somehow different, more important, and separate from the rest of humanity because of their blood relations. The prophet told his daughter Fatima, at the time of the day of judgment, you are not going to be asked about your lineage. You are not going to be asked if you were the daughter of a prophet. You are going to be asked about what were your deeds during your life. And this is what each of us has to consider. When we look at our understanding of the Asmaul Husna, our understanding of the names of God, our understanding of Rahman Irahim, when we look at that, and when we understand that we are supposed to become Rahman and Rahim, can we say that our actions in this world are actually Rahman and Rahim, or are they just words that we repeat that have no real meaning for us? Somehow, when we talk about reality, when we talk about God's qualities, when we talk about unity, when we talk about peace and love for all mankind, when we talk about these concepts, are they merely words for us, or are they reality for us? Because if they're merely words, then they are part of the intellect and have no meaning. It's only when these words enter into our hearts and become part of us do they have meaning. I know people who can speak for hours about the qualities of God, but if they're in a restaurant and a waitress doesn't respond to them the way they want that waitress to respond, they go into a tyrannical screaming fit as to what that person has done. Quite astonishing. Can we maintain our actions within the realm of what we intend our actions to be? Do we have an intention that our demeanor should be a certain way? Or do we give ourselves the excuse to act out when things don't go what our mind perceives as the way things should go? To start with, we have to understand that the mind is limited, and what the mind can understand and what the mind can do is limited. The mind is limited to this illusory world. So if we act in unison with the mind, if we act in unison with our thought process through the mind, we are acting out our life in this illusory world. We are acting out our life within the limitations of the elemental world. How do we go beyond the elemental world into the world that is God's kingdom, the world of wisdom? How do we break through from our elemental mind into the world of wisdom? Well, to do this, and to really do this, we have to set up a watcher within us. We have to watch every one of our actions, and then we have to question ourselves. Is what we're doing within the realm of mercy and compassion? Is what we're doing within the realm of love? Is what we're doing within the realm of God's qualities? Is what we're doing entirely out of self-motive, or is what we're doing with the understanding of the unity within all creation? If we are not considering the pain and the suffering of the rest of humanity when we act, then we are narcissistic. We are devoted to ourselves. Can you imagine if Allah was devoted to himself alone? None of us would exist, because he maintains and sustains all of the universe, and he maintains and sustains it through his qualities and through his love for humanity and his love for his creation. Do we love his creation the way he loves his creation? God has no differences. God has no separations. God doesn't see colors. God doesn't have a religion. God is beyond all of these things. Are we beyond all of these things? Do we consider our religion separate from others, more exalted than others, more godly than others? Or do we understand that all men have a right to that one God in the same way? Can we grasp that concept? You know, we're taught from the time we are little to be different. We're taught from the time we are little that we're separate. We're taught from the time we are little of the importance of our group. And this all happens because the vast majority of humanity doesn't understand the nature of wisdom. The vast majority of humanity doesn't understand the nature of unity. The vast majority of humanity doesn't understand the concept of a God who loves all of his creations and who has no animosities and doesn't have differences. This is beyond the mind's ability to grasp, because the mind is self-centered. The mind is not expansive through all of humanity. The mind is not looking to include all of humanity. The lower self, the self that's caught in the torpor of illusion, is involved in self-interest and involved in maintaining the status quo of the individual. So it's ego-based, it's egocentric based, and it can't see beyond this lifetime. It doesn't have the concept to understand its own death. It refuses to acknowledge its own death. So it keeps on going as if there were no death, as if there were no afterlife, as if there were no recompense, as if there were no reckoning, as if there were no answering for anything that you've done. It just goes on. But as this happens, sometimes for some people, an inkling comes into their being that this can't be the way it is. You see death all around you. Constantly, people are dying. You see people disappearing from your life every year. And as you get older, more and more people disappear. Well, do you ever ask where they go? Do you ever ask, am I going there too? Do you ever ask, is it true that there is a day of reckoning? Is it true there is a time when you have to answer for your actions? Is it true that Allah expects you to be judged? If you conclude that these things are true, and if you conclude that you have to answer for your actions, then you begin to live a different life. You begin to look for forgiveness. You begin to look for unity. You begin to look for a way that you can help the rest of humanity in the way that Allah helps all of humanity. It says Allah is the sustainer and the nourisher. It doesn't say that he's the sustainer for just this group or just that group, or he's the nourisher for just this group or just that group. He is the sustainer and the nourisher for all of mankind. And mankind includes every sex, every color, every race, every religion, every caste, every imaginable human in this earth is sustained and protected and nourished by Allah. So who are we to say that those people are denied? When we begin to act that way, what we are, I'm almost sneezing, what we are doing, in fact, is limiting Allah to our imagination of him. If we have differences, we tend to see God as having differences. If we have specific religious ideas, we see God as imposing those religious ideas. We always see our deity as a representation of ourself. But in truth, he is not a representation of ourselves. He's way beyond who we are. He's way beyond our understanding. And the only way that we can come to know him is to give up all of our ideas. The only way to come to know him is to give up all our desires. The only way to know him is to give up all our prejudices. The only way to come to know him is to give up all of our differences. The only way to know him is to give up all that we hold special about ourselves and understand that what is special about ourselves is the fact that we are part of the great unity that he has created. And this is what makes us exalted. And all of the things in this temporary manifestation, in this illusory world that we think make us special, in fact, make us less. Not only do they make us less, they become what damns us. They become what we will have to answer for at the time of reckoning. And until we realize that, until we understand that, then we are like blind men walking through this earth, refusing to see what's in front of us. We refuse to see the death of all mankind in front of us. And mostly, the mind refuses to see its own death. It sees itself as immortal, and that's a lie. This body dissipates and disappears. We walk around and we say things like we are a body with a soul. It's not true. We are a soul with a temporary body. We are a soul with a temporary housing. We are a soul who has taken on a shirt as a covering, and we use this shirt as our being. Imagine if you wore a suit of clothes and you said to everyone, this suit of clothes is who I am. Well, that's what's happened. We talk about this suit that we wear over our truth, which is our soul, as who we are. We have been going through our life with a mistaken identity. We have been going through our life calling ourselves something that we're not. It's interesting that in Arabic, many people take on the names of Allah. People are called Abdul Rahma, Abdul Rahim, Abdul Latif, and so on. Abdul meaning slave, and the name being one of the names of God. The point that should be grasped from this is that our reality is not this body. Our reality is not who we are in this world. Our reality is our connection to our Lord. And that's why we use names of our Lord in order to identify our truth. Our truth is that we return to that one. Our truth is that we become those qualities. And if we don't, there is no truth to us. There's just illusion. So this name that we have, that we take through the world, is our connection to illusion. When we take on a name that is of the qualities of Allah, then we are losing our connection to illusion, and at least for the sake of our name, we refer ourselves to our Creator as if we are part of our Creator. And thus comes Anal Haq, I am reality. So if you are reality, you are not Robert and you are not James, you are Rahman. You are one of the names of Allah. And we need to understand that, and we need to make that part of who we are. And so the question always comes up, how do we get to the state where our love of God, our understanding of God is so overwhelming that we lose our attachment to this earth, that we lose our attachment to illusion? And the way it happens is if you can concentrate on the beauty and the grandeur and the grace and the effulgence of God. And as that meditation goes stronger and stronger and stronger, and as that meditation on the all-powerful Creator grows stronger and stronger and stronger, the light of that understanding is so great that the mind becomes mesmerized by that light, and the mind falls in love with the beauty of that light, and desire falls in love with the beauty of that light. But since mind and desire aren't capable of becoming that light, they merely want to possess it in the way that you would possess things in this world. So the mind wants to possess that light, and the desire wants to possess that light. And the mind says it's mine, and desire says it's mine. And then desire and mind fight over that light until they destroy each other. And then when they are destroyed, then we are free of their influence, and we are truly connected to that effulgent light that is our Creator. And then we have gone beyond mind and desire. And it's only when we go beyond mind and desire that we enter into truth. We enter into that area where there is no animosity, where we feel the pain of others, where other men are the same as we are, where we don't see differences among men, where we don't see differences among religion, where we are able to treat everyone equally, where we're able to truly love, and love in the way that Allah loves. And it's only if we can do that, that we can achieve the birthright that Allah gave unto each of us. In our creation, He gave to us the ability to lose ourselves and know reality. Every day in prayer, people say, take us on the straight path. And what is the straight path? It is certainly not a direction through this world. It is a direction from this world to the light. That's the straight path. And if we want to enter into the light, we have to give up our attachment to the darkness. And this world is the darkness. This dunya, or dunghill, is the darkness. And we are put here to learn about the light and to appreciate the light and to climb towards that light. And that's why 124,000 prophets were sent into the world. That's why the Ketubs are sent into the world. That's why the holy ones are sent into the world. That's why the manifestations of light were sent into the world. Allah has sent beings who look like men into the world so that we can recognize them, recognize ourselves in them, and understand that there is a place beyond the way we see things, a place beyond the way we understand things. There is a place where men exist, where they love all mankind. And if we can spend time with men like that, We can see their peace. We can feel the peace when we are in their presence. And that peace is so much more valuable than anything else that we know, that we surrender to that peace and are willing to follow that peace to where it takes us. But to do that, we have to be able to understand what God has in store for us. And we have to understand that his treasure is greater than any treasure in this world. But what happens is that most men are attached to what they see with their physical eyes, to what they hear with their ears, to what they smell with their noses, and they're willing to spend their life in their sensory capabilities. They're not willing to go beyond it. There is an entire realm of existence beyond our senses. And it is in that realm of existence that eternity exists. And it's in that realm of existence that grace exists, that effulgence exists, that truth exists, that unity exists, that God exists. And it is where we are intended to go. So may it be that we understand the need to take that journey. May it be that we relieve ourselves of the attachment to all of the things in this world that hold us back from taking that journey. May we understand the difference between the true treasure of Allah's mercy and grace and qualities, as opposed to the false treasure of the gems and gold of this world. May we be able to see that truth. May we be able to follow up on that truth. And may we be able to go in the direction of truth so that we ourselves can become that truth. May that happen for each and every one of us. Ameen, ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.